pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sandy, roll call, please.
Councilmember Hall. Here. Councilmember Mazzoni. Here. Councilmember Parham.
Present.
Councilmember Tavalero.
Here.
Mayor Palfini.
Here. Item number 3. If everybody has read the agenda, do we want to make any changes?
I'm good with it.
I'm good.
Hearing no objections, I'll approve the agenda as written. I can do that, right?
By unanimous consent?
Okay. I'm sure. Non-agenda public comment. Now's the time in the meeting that the public can make reference to anything that is not on the agenda. And if they want to bring something forward, we can put it on next agenda. And I will advise council that we do not want to enter into discussion, because that's not what it's for. So any comments from the outside? Do we have somebody who wants to come forward? Come on forward.
Easy.
There's a first for everything. You walk right up and I ask you, may I have your name and
No, right there, right where you are.
right there.
Okay, where I've got a place to put everything. I have my glasses because I forgot I had them.
And pull that microphone down a little closer. There you go.
Okay,
Name and address, roughly.
my name is Karuna McAllister. I live at 1490 Kellogg Space 5. That's the Cal-Or Mobile Home Estates next to Pilot.
Thank you.
So, I wrote this so I could read it. I've been in Weed, Mount Shasta, Dunsmuir area for about 5 or 6 or 7 years. I have seen the effects on the community, on the land, and on the areas around as we've had a pandemic, at least 3 big massive fires, which has damaged, and I can see it, and I'm from somewhere else, it has damaged the community. The community doesn't ever want to be with each other anymore. They've lost their connection to the earth. And you drive over by Lincoln Heights and it's nothing but burned ground. Dear God, made me cry. I have an idea to help cope with the trauma. I believe we can rebuild not just community, but we can create a fire break in a green wall. And we have 3 existing routes through the area of Weed. And we could do a beautification project, which is what my idea is, to piggyback on the beautification project that was done in Mount Shasta perhaps 10 years ago. And what I'd like to see is to have a green area. My idea is flower boxes to cover some part of the burned ground. And by having beauty appear upon their lots, that people might be inspired to feel more joining into the community. I'd like to see that to start at the Weed Community Center on Highway 97 to the Pilot in South Weed. Now then, the Berean Church up there on 97 has already done their part of planting a green wall. They just planted 30 trees about 2 weeks ago across the wall that's up there. So I'd like to take it from the Berean Church to Ray's, through downtown somehow, across where the elementary school is, where they do the food bank now, and across, there's another place. All of these are already walks. And half of it's, Lincoln Heights is nothing but burned ground. It's scary. And if we could do something like that, I believe that we can come together as a community. We need to grow. Come on, let's be happy. Let's get together. Come on, everybody. Come on, let's get together. Okay, so I called 2 local vendors and got quotes for what I consider my limit. Do I
We'll
have
let
to
you
shut
go
up
for a
now?
little bit longer.
Okay, so I think we could do the 4-foot red cement scallops for the edge. If you think about John Scott in Mount Shasta, how he's done the daffodils across that front and how beautiful that is every spring. And we could do that. And I think not just daffodils, but gladiolas. I have purple and red and white gladiolas that have survived for 3 years. I think if we put a few daffodils and a gladiola as a summer bloomer, we could have a series all the way across town where we could see pretty flowers and people could be smiling about it. So I see $50 a plot is what I got quotes for 4-foot scallops, the 2.5 foot of potting soil, bulbs, fertilizer, daffodils. Watering commitment would be a spring and summer thing, and the water truck already exists. It's already owned by Weed. If you had a driver 3 days a week, and you could do that either off of the Parks and Rec funds, or you could do it off of another, maybe we'll have to create a job or something for a few people to drive across and water them out of a water truck, water these flower boxes. And so then we have to come together to create funds, create a project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's pleasant.
Yes, my little notebook said, today's going to be awesome. Hope and justice.
You're a bright spot. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. My blessings. Yes, I know, I'm a very bright spot. Scary to come.
Bright spot. Bright.
Honey, I glow.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll sing for you next time.
Thank you, dear.
Girl, I'm for Texas.
I'll bet you can
You picked up on that.
Lost all of the ballots.
She comes to our senior lunch at the community center all the time. Any other public comments? Okay, seeing no extra public comment, we'll go into council member announcements, meetings, reports, and comments. We'll start off with Bob. You want to start?
Mr. Mayor, I don't have anything this week.
Sure you do.
Well, I'll think about it. I'll come in with something.
Your trees.
Oh, yes. Mr. Mayor, thank you for reminding me of that. Jim Taylor called me and said, hey, we need to do something about the trees down there, downtown. We need to do it now. And we came in and talked to Craig, and I tried to put it off, but Jim wouldn't let us do it. And Craig's crew the next day called me and said, okay, we'll meet you there at 10 o'clock on Wednesday. And we, in a matter of 4 hours, I think, 4.5 hours, we got 2 trees dug out and then replaced. And it was a beginning, but it's really ironic. Justin showed up down there and said, hey, I was just telling Tim this morning that we need to do something about those trees that are missing, and here we are, we're doing them. So, great minds think alike, huh?
Is that the one in front of the thrift store
Thrift store and the
down by Daryl's?
Papas,
Oh, and by
Yeah.
Papa's.
yeah, or the pub.
And they're in, and so far they're still growing.
And interesting, just so, when we originally put those trees in, somebody came up with the idea to put root guards around it so the roots don't grow out into the road, and those roots went down. And when they came out, it just came straight out. It wasn't like we had to rip up it was actually a nice clean hole. So it does work. Those root guards that are about, I think they're about 3.5 feet plastic that
Yeah.
we put all the way around. It does work.
We wanted to keep them out of
Isn't it also,
the infrastructure.
isn't it also the kind of tree?
Part of it's the kind of tree, those were,
Main thing is, the root's gonna look for
Limited.
water.
Right.
You know, and if it can go out, it'll go out looking for water, but we forced them to go down, and they just went down. It's pretty amazing.
Cool.
And that had to be, we did that in, originally, what, 2012 or something like that? We put those trees in? So that was
Roughly,
11 years
yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
And they've been run over and picked on, and but some of them still doing,
that was our 3-month, 3-year project.
yes.
Sue, anything?
Yeah, I went to Weed Elementary School and read in the Read Across Siskiyous, read to the one pre-K class and one kindergarten class. And they were all very cute. In the kindergarten class, we had to wait because after lunch, they were doing yoga. So we had to wait for them to finish their little yoga class. And I read to them, and there were 11 children in the class, and they were all boys. They had 2 girls in the class, and one of them was moving on Friday, and the other one wasn't there that day. And I said, great. And then I want to remind everybody that on Friday, the 17th, at 7 o'clock at Weed High School, the Weed High School Cougar football team will be in round 2 of the playoffs. They got a bye for tomorrow, and they play next Friday.
Cool.
Don't know who they play yet.
Cool.
Won't know till Friday, till Saturday.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I also read for the Butteville kindergarten, and it was wild. It was great. It was something else.
They're so attentive, aren't they?
Yes, but I'm gonna tell you, the book, I'm not in favor of the book.
I didn't like the book either.
I
It was-
didn't like the book. The book, Pig was still cheating at the end.
Yeah, Pig does not stop cheating.
He let you win most of the time.
Yeah.
Mark?
Yeah.
Comment, Mark?
Yeah, just a couple real quick. I'd like staff, and this is probably gonna make some people's heads roll off here, but to look into our own fire department, just to see what costs are, just for something for the future. And see what we can do with that, what the cost would be, what it would take to put a fire department together here in the city. Just for that, and that doesn't have to be next month or something, just take your time on it and see, and get the real numbers, exactly what it's gonna cost. I've been approached by it a few times, and I'd just like to know. So we can sit and see where we're going with this, because the fire, pretty quick, they're not gonna have any kind of fire department. Everything is gonna be completely volunteer, but it's a way to, I think, to bring, like Brian, you know, the younger folks in there that want these careers, you might be able to offer something here with the city. And it may cut down on your overtime, it may not, I don't know, but that's the one thing I'd like to find out. The other thing is, I know we've sent some letters out for certain abatements and things around, and I'd like an update, if we can, to see where that's at. Where are we at with it? We have any response from it? Is there anything going on? Are we still looking into trying to get warrants to go ahead and check this out and start really truly cleaning up these areas that are problems for us? You know, we don't want to wait another 20 years. I won't, don't know if I'll be here, but I'd hate to put that off on the next councils that are gonna be coming up here. That needs to be done. And that's something is a priority for me personally. And that's something I take to heart. I will not stop until we get something positive coming out of that. So that's it for me. I wish I had more about reading, but I passed on that
You
one.
didn't read?
No, I have a hard time.
Daryl?
All right, well, I didn't go to the school to read, but I read to children every night, so I think I'm okay there. So first, I'd like to thank the city staff, the Chamber of Commerce, and all the local businesses, organizations, and volunteers that came out for Trunk or Treat. It was a huge success, lots of happy kids and families, and we also made national news, so that was really positive. So, and would like to remind people, obviously you have Happy Thanksgiving coming up, but the Saturday after Thanksgiving, we have the Old Fashioned Christmas at Heritage Plaza, the Weed Chamber's putting together. So hopefully we can have everybody out for that. And, you know, I know everybody gets excited about Black Friday and Cyber Monday, but I just would like to encourage everybody to shop local around Siskiyou County, support our local businesses. We have a lot of great businesses in Weed, Mount Shasta, Dunsmuir, McLeod, that we want to keep, we want to see them stay here. We've had a few business closures the last couple months, and we'd like to not see any more of those. So that's all I got.
That's plenty. I would jump on Daryl's comment about trunk or treat. I'm always in somebody's meeting, but in every one of those meetings, trunk or treat was inquired about and wanted to see if they could replicate. So I guess that's a good sign. I want to thank Bob and the city staff or crew for putting those trees in. It's something that's near and dear to my heart, of course, since we spent so much time down there. I would like to also, hopefully John can jump in on this a little bit, but we have one home that's ready to occupy from the fire. We have 8 or 9 building permits. And on another good note is that all of the survivors, I believe all but maybe one, have been relocated, or not at this point, but are in that way of getting relocated. They all have places to stay for the coming months. So that's a good thing. I would like to know from John back there, do you have any comments about the building procedures going on in the city right now? Yeah, if you could. Thanks.
9 permits that have been applied for. 8 have been approved. Just got one new one today, so it will be in the process of being approved. The other one is very close to being approved, so shortly we should have 10 approved permits. I believe out of those 10, 6 are in some stage of construction, everywhere from 1 to virtually final, not quite final due to power, but we've got, and everything down to a foundation. So we're making good progress in that regard. 2 of the permits are for manufactured homes, and one of those is on site, and it's actually quite nice. So that's what I've got in that. I have a little update on Tesla. I don't know if you want to hear that.
Well, if you want to throw it in, we can.
Okay.
We can go to reports at the end if you want, or if you want to finish it now, you can do that.
Okay, Tesla's has done a very good job. They anticipate paving. It's dependent on weather, but possibly next week. By Monday, they should have rough construction finished. Pacific Power did install the vault today, and by Monday, if everything works, they'll have everything leveled and smoothed out, ready for paving, but then it depends on weather.
Okay.
So, and then once it is paved, they can start to do the final installation the day after paving, and that takes them 4 to 5 days. So we're getting very close.
That's good. It's nice to know for the holidays. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I don't know if this couple that came in, did you come in to speak? Okay, I do know that this gentleman, and I'm assuming it's your wife, I don't know that. My sister. Is the new owner of the High Low. Is
Well,
who this
welcome
gentleman
to
is.
Weed. Thank you. Welcome to Weed.
Scott and I met him a few weeks back when we went out to dinner, and I'm sorry, I forgot what your name was. Yeah,
Yeah, it's nice to attend. This is our first time to attend the meeting.
good, thank you.
Yeah, we just want to know how it goes and how it works. So that's why we just came to attend.
Well, welcome.
Good,
Thank you for
thanks for
coming.
coming.
Yeah. Thanks, Sue. I had one last comment. We all get a lot of emails, but one of the emails I've seen over and over again is from the Pacific Land Trust. And I took it upon myself to invite them to come take a look at the Wildland Refuge and the Botanical Garden site that we have. I'm hoping to hear back. I stress the point that it is the most southern tip of the Shasta Valley water basin. It kind of is where everything kind of starts or stops, but I think it starts there. And it all goes to the Klamath. We have, again, it's one of those projects that's been sitting there probably for 30 years. And it's a worthwhile project. I think it was worthwhile when it was kind of thought about or brought up to our attention. And I think it would be good for the city as far as having a focal point. So anyway, I'm hoping good news will come out of that. And that's the end of my public comment. So we'll move on to presentations. Do we have Mr. Baker from, there he is back there. Come on forward. Yes.
I let you think about the Veterans Day.
Oh,
On your, but
I need glasses for that one. Okay. Oh. In remembrance of Veterans Day, that's this Saturday, 11/11, we recognize staff and council who served. Police Department, David Whelm, tours in Afghanistan and Qatar. Jonathan Vandiwalker, Army, 210 to 214, tours in Korea. Public Works, Scott Brigham, 87 through 91, 2001 through 2017 in the National Guard. He had tours in Afghanistan and Kosovo. Chris Davis, Army, 2003 to 2008. 2 tours, Iraq. Administration, City Council, Tim Rundell, Air Force, 91 through 97. Tours in Aviano, Italy. Bob Hall, U.S. Army, 1967 through 70. Tours in Korea. And I would like to thank everybody for their service. And although I was not in, I'll salute you guys all. Thank you very much. Thanks for that, Tim. Appreciate that. Okay. And now back to Mr. Baker.
Good evening. Dan Baker with Pacific Power. I'm the operations manager for the Shasta Wairika District for Pacific Power. Tim asked me to come give you guys an update as to the project out on the Lincoln Heights fire rebuild, as to where we're at, the overall project, and then where we're at and some anticipated completion dates. So I'll start with an overall project overview, and then I'll give you a rundown of where we're at. And then if you guys would like to beat me up a little bit, I'm here. So.
Wait a minute. Hold on. I got my hammer.
Yeah. Overall, project out there in Lincoln Heights, what we call Lincoln Heights area, part of the mill fire rebuild. It's looking at, it's going to anticipated serve 99 customers. There's a 1.44 miles of single-phase primary line, just short of a mile, 3-phase primary. There's 16 pad mount transformers, 6 total sectionalizers, 4 single-phase, 2 3-phase, 28 vaults, 52 secondary pedestals, 1.3 miles of secondary conductor, and 19 street lights. And as you guys already know, it's a multi-million-dollar project for Pacific Power. We're just short of $3 million on it right now. And that's, these numbers aren't including AT&T's part of this too. So they have significant infrastructure out there as well. And, you know, obviously you guys know at the end of the mill fire, you know, sometime between the end of the mill fire and now, you guys declared that area an underground district, and that was what pushed this project along. And we had to work on coordinating with the other utilities in the area and hopefully trying to foster an agreement to be in the same trench for a lot of good reasons. That's when I became involved in late March, April this year, was to help try to foster that agreement because we were having some roadblocks. And the 4 utilities were Hunter Communications, Vive Broadband, AT&T, and then obviously Pacific Power. And we met every other Tuesday and had some off-cycle meetings as well. But at the end of the day, Hunter and Vive decided not to join in the project, which was a little disappointing because we worked all summer long to try to accommodate them and what their needs and wishes were. But at the end of the day, I think they had some sticker shock, which kind of surprised me because they're construction companies as well, and they know how much trenching costs and You know, underground's expensive. There's not a secret. Much more expensive than overhead infrastructure. So, with that being said, where we're at today, I'll refer to it as the east and west side of the project, if that makes sense to you guys. The west side being kind of the northwest side of the highway, east side being the side where the park and graveyard is and stuff like that, right? So on the west side, we started over there with the civil project, all the substructure work. That got finished in whole today. We were waiting on some remaining 6-inch conduit. Finally got that done today. Proofing and string is in, and we're pretty much ready to start pulling cable and getting the electrical piece of the project going. On the east side of the project, they started on the civil last week and had a change order and some estimating issues there, but worked through that. And the electrical, like I said, was delivered, the material was delivered earlier this week, and the west side loop hopefully will be completely energized, I would say within 10 days. But we'll see how that goes. I will tell you, we think we're out of the pandemic and the COVID, but man, I tell you what, that has really, really hurt the supply chain in all industries, right? But in the 30 years I've been doing this work, I've never seen it so hard to get material, whether it be transformers or vaults. We've really had to scramble to get a lot of this stuff, and that's led to a couple roadblocks, a couple delays here and there, a couple workarounds, but we're working through it. And at the end of the day, we're putting together, I feel a very good end product for the city of Weed and the residents out there. You're going to have basically a 21st century infrastructure underground system out there, which will be real nice for them. Not to mention the fire safety and not having overhead electrical lines, not having poles fall down in the middle of a fire and affecting people's ability to evacuate. So that's what I have. If you guys got anything for me.
I know if I could say something first.
Sure.
If it wasn't for Dan, we'd probably still be in the plans. He's the one that was behind this.
Okay, then I'll get my smaller hammer out.
I appreciate that, Craig. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions from council?
Nope, thank you.
No,
I do have a couple.
Sure.
One, what is going to be an energized date for the west side, as you would refer to it? And specifically, there's a reason, is because Robert's house is finished.
Yes.
And as we discussed at our last meeting, that, and I know there are issues, so you've explained those fairly well, but at the end of the day, we promised those people that when they finished, we would have power.
You bet.
And that really is something that comes back to haunt us a little bit. So
as far as energizing the west side, like I said, today is the 9th. I would hope to see it energized in about 10 days. I'm giving a little bit of slack there, but I know, I want to say, what's that address? What's that address, Tim? Something on Wakefield. It's on Wakefield.
it's on, yeah.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the house. I'm just,
It's
the
on
address is
Wakefield,
slipping my
yeah.
mind right now. But we do have a plan B. I committed to getting him power on the 17th, which is next Friday. Come that or high water, I will have him power. So I do have a plan B if we don't have it energized from the permanent source. And he will have good power until we get it done.
All right, I do appreciate that, and I think everybody, there's some leeway on the other units, but that one there is one that's kind of
I
ready to
absolutely
go.
appreciate that, yes, 100%.
And we gave him great kudos for getting started, thank goodness. In some respects, we don't have 10 sitting there. I'm looking at my notes for infrastructure, sorry. I write notes on my phone. I'm not talking to anybody, believe me. Okay. Actually, that's my best question. I think I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that for the folks that are listening to this, that we have commitments in place, and hopefully we can live up to them and be.
We will get him power, like I said, whether it's Plan A or Plan B, he will have power and be able to reside in his home with power by the 17th.
I thank you.
And while I got the floor for a minute too, and I forget that people are also listening. I think it's worth noting, you know, in 30 years of doing this work, I haven't always had the best relationship with AT&T, right? It's contentious. We're kind of like brothers in the same sandpit. But they have been fantastic on this project. They really have helped push this along. You know, and it's not, in that community, I know that community isn't normally one that they had served. I think Vive pretty much had the contracts in that area, or whatever you want to call it. But AT&T's been great. They've really pushed this along and are really trying to earn the business and the respect of the community. So they've been really great to work for and help push this project along, like Craig was saying. They were
I'll take my hat off to them as well, because without them, we would be deficient in broadband. So that is a big thing.
Yep.
So I did have a quick question. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the work you guys are doing and leading the charge to get that done.
Yeah.
Was very disappointed to hear about Vive and Hunter Communications dropping out last minute. As far as energizing the east side, do you have a estimated projection for that? I noted today I drove through the site and I saw a ton of people working out there diligently to get that done.
Yeah. I would say before Christmas.
Okay.
You know, conservatively, I'd say before Christmas. I don't see that it shouldn't go past Christmas. I would hope to be earlier than that, but, you know, I'm being a little bit conservative and kind of hedging my bet a little bit because of some of the things that have cropped up. I spent all morning this morning scrambling around on a material issue that I didn't expect to have. You know, like I say, the supply chain thing has really been surprising to me how bad it still is. So, yeah, I think the east side, I think in whole, the whole project, the thing that'll be sticking out last, we made a plan, when that was, before it burnt, it was fed across the highway there at the community center, right? We had in fact, those overhead poles are still there. At the end of the day, that'll still be the same thing, but we got to get the Caltrans permit, and that's always something that takes some time, and we're working through that process. So we didn't want that to hold up getting people power and getting the neighborhoods back power and what they want and need. So we put together a plan to energize the east side and the west side separately while we're working through the process with Caltrans, and then we get that process, then we'll bore underneath the highway and tie the two sides together. Is the plan.
Brilliant. Good.
Interesting. Thank you.
Thank you for working hard on it.
And I would just like to echo what Craig said. Until Dan came on board, this thing was kind of in a state of flux and just bouncing around. But when he came on with that booming voice over the over the Zoom, he got everybody's attention. He got my attention really quick. So, but again, hats off to him because he kind of grabbed the bull by the horns and was tired of, I guess you could say, people wanting to be coddled. And he just said, no, we're not doing that anymore. And it is unfortunate. We had two bail on us because those two were a lot of the headaches along the way. And then for them to just bail at the very last second.
We didn't need that.
We didn't even need that. You know, Dan and I talked about today, this thing could have been done probably a couple months ago.
Late summer.
Yeah, into summer. If those two hadn't been, you know, taking up all the time and then to just bail at the very last second.
It was really, you know, we had the coordination between the four utilities because, you know, you think that it'd be simple, have a trench open and throw pipe in the ground, and it's not. You know, we got our codes and compliances, we got to abide by, you know, PUC. And, you know, with the trench design part, you know, putting four utilities with mainline facilities in the same trench became pretty complicated. And, you know, like Tim said, I honestly think if it was just AT&T and us, we could have had this done, I would think like by August, just conservatively speaking. But it is what it is. We're getting it done. They're going to have power.
We have one question from Mr.
Yes,
Hall.
Mr. Baker, thank you for what you've done. Obviously, you've stepped up. And we were talking regarding, I think you've pretty much answered everything regarding, there are people that are listening, that have been concerned about this for quite a while. But, and understanding the corporate etiquette, what you really don't point fingers and say, what would happen. But I think I think it'd be important to clarify, what I understand is that those two corporations actually should, if they cared about us, they would have pulled out well before they did. Nothing could nothing started happening because they decided, well, not only decided, I think they just pretty much neglected the responsibility they had for us getting that program moving over there. So I'm trying to tell you, I'd like you to say, point the finger at them, but this is what happened. I mean, and we have been very concerned about the responsibility of going out when we were told, Tim would tell us, yes, we're going to be there. You know, we're going to be ready. We're going to be ready. And we got caught. I mean, not caught, but those two corporations, you know, really slowed things down. And the way it sounds is if you hadn't stepped in when you did, we would still be doing the same thing. And it's horrible.
In particular, Vive made a very big corporate mistake. I don't know if it was, it's a huge, it goes to the CEO level. I don't think people understand how far that went up.
Yeah.
But it was a costly mistake for them too. But anyway, any more questions? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, on to item number 7, the consent agenda. Does any council member want to pull anything from the consent agenda? Anybody from the public want to comment on the consent agenda? Okay, so I'll entertain the motion.
I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. On to item A in the regular agenda. Fire, by motion, the council will consider approval of Resolution 21-2023 adopting budget adjustments for fiscal year 23-24 for the fire department. Can I hear, you want me to hear from you or Brian?
Brian is the one that is probably more versed into, Brian and Jill, on why we have this amendment tonight. So I'll pass the baton to him. So if you have any questions.
Yeah, we're gonna discuss the meeting budget mainly related to the overtime line and the volunteer line that we have. As discussed, while we respond to large incidents, the department's overtime costs rise significantly, and those costs come out of the salary and overtime line and the volunteer line that we have in our budget. And while we do that, the department gets reimbursed for those costs associated to the response to the fires. And the funds are placed into the line 10-001-362, as you can see in the first attachment. And the fire department received an unanticipated revenue in the amount of $105,666 into that line. So our amended budget plan for that unanticipated revenue is recommended as follows: to increase the budget in that line to account for that unanticipated revenue of $105,666 and allocate $65,000 out of that line 362 into line 402, salaries and overtime, to cover the additional overtime costs occurred by responding to larger incidents. And additionally, the $24,000 into the line for the hourly pay for volunteers responding to larger incidents as well.
So accounting corrections and
Correct.
adjustments. Okay.
Yeah,
Adjustments.
the reimbursements came in, and now we're just adjusting our budget to account for what we
All
have
of those things.
received.
Okay.
And you got them all? Are they all in?
I don't believe the last one came in yet, the head fire. I don't believe that one has made it in yet, but this is everything that's come
So far.
so far.
And so I get the overtime and the equipment reimbursement, that comes in one check and then you guys figure that out, does it come in two?
The reimbursement checks come at one total, and the difference between the 362 outside fire protection and the 367 equipment reimbursement is explained in the invoice for the fire.
Okay,
And when the check comes in, those amounts are put into the lines dependent on what we are reimbursed for.
Okay.
got it. And that equipment reimbursement is exactly for that equipment. Can't be used for salaries, can't be used for anything, it has to be used for
Replacing,
equipment.
yes.
Cool,
Replacing and maintaining equipment is how it's written.
right, because that can't be that great for them driving around in the woods. Well, I mean, it is a truck to drive around in the woods, but anyway. Okay. And then the 362, is that, my glasses aren't that great. That's the overtime.
That is the reimbursement we get for salaries.
Okay. So you are on salary?
I am an hourly employee.
He's an hourly employee with the city? Yes. Oh.
Didn't know that?
Well, no, maybe. So do you get, I just actually had this discussion yesterday with something else. So you get 40 hours a week.
Correct.
So if you go to a fire at 3 in the morning, do you get more money?
If I respond
In the
or
city,
work after hours, it would be,
You respond in
Per the
after,
city.
between 8 and 5?
per the city policy, it would be overtime.
So do you get an overtime check and you get a regular check?
It's all in one.
But that reimbursement, it comes from the entity that is paying you, right?
Hopefully.
If it's a larger incident, yes,
But if it's a house fire in the city of Weed, it's not.
No.
The
correct,
city's paying you your overtime for that.
correct.
Okay,
Should come out of their budget, right?
That's where it comes out of.
yeah, the fire budget.
Any questions from the audience? Okay, I know this is so entertaining that we, all this good stuff we have.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to, for the approval of resolution number 21-2023, adopting budget adjustments for fiscal year 23-24 for the fire department.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. On to item B, fire. By motion, the council will consider approval of Resolution 22-2023, adopting the budget adjustments for 23-24 for the fire department SAFER grant. So this also explains to where the money went, okay, that we received.
Yes, so when we created the budget for the SAFER grant funded position, there was a overtime line created within that budget. And the SAFER grant does not pay for overtime. So that was a mistake creating that overtime line. And currently there's $13,000 put into that overtime line. And the way the grant is written, we wouldn't be able to pay for any overtime that position creates. So we're requesting to move those funds that were put into that overtime line within the SAFER grant budget into the line for uniforms, cleaning, and training, which is where we will take the money out of to purchase turnouts and PPE. And currently, there's $22,750 in there, and total received from that grant for turnouts and gear is $45,500.
Questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Well, we had them answered before, but okay. Public comment? No public comment? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve resolution number 22-2023, adopting budget adjustments for fiscal year 23-24 for the fire department SAFER grant.
I get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. Item number C, Measure O Committee. By motion, the council will consider the recommendations to amend the contract for the Weed Rec Park District allocations for 23-24 and 24-25. You want to give a brief on that one?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, before you tonight is the amended Measure O recommendation. As we talked about earlier, there was some miscommunication at the beginning. This is the first year, the spring was the first year that the Measure O Oversight Committee met with the different entities involved with the request for funding. and there was some miscommunication, and essentially at the end of the day, they were allocated $45,000, but still expected to pay for fuel and maintenance of a van, which they had not ever paid before. That was simply done by the city. So there was approximate cost of about $6,000 for fuel, $1,000 for maintenance, which is like basic oil changes and things, because our guys down at the shop are busy. They're slammed right now as we speak and trying to get stuff back on the road. So this essentially is a modification going from 45 to 52,000. That'll be covered by the Measure O funding. And as you have before you is their advisory committee memo explaining what happened and what the shortfall. And there was a 5-0 vote from the Measure O to approve the additional $7,000 for the fuel and the maintenance for the Weed Recreation and Parks District. I wish you guys would have called yourself Parks and Rec. That would have been
I know,
much
it
easier.
drives me crazy too.
Me too, because every
I
time.
call it
Can we make an amendment at the next meeting?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what you have before you here. Nancy Miller, the new director for the Weed Recreation and Parks District, is here if you have any questions. If not,
I would ask, are you okay with this?
Yeah.
Okay. It seems like the spirit of the
Tax.
Measure O has been fulfilled in my mind, so that's good. I'm okay. Any other questions? that anybody
No, I just
has?
want to thank the Measure O committee for getting their heads together and through all those meetings that I've heard about, that some went well, some did not go so well, but it showed that we did right by having you guys on there. So who isn't here right now, I just want to say thank you. And Alan, thank you. And I wish Melissa would have been here. She was the chair. But anyway, good luck, Nancy. You'll do a great job. I have no doubt in my mind. So thank you, guys.
Any public comment? I know you were waiting for that, David. Did you want to say something, Nancy? Come on up.
I just wanted to really quickly say thank you. You have to talk
You
into
have
the
to talk.
microphone.
We forced
Our
you.
this guy over here. Oh, this one? Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to publicly thank the Measure O committee, Melissa and Tim, because I kept coming back and they wanted more data, and then I was asking more questions because I'm new. And so we just kind of worked through it, and I really appreciated doing that. This money is really important to our district, and it helps us, with our senior programs and the van. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I would also say thanks for working it through. I think, again, this was your first time as well at going through it, and it's nice to know that we the suggestion to have a Measure O committee was something new, and you doing it, everybody was kind of new, so I'm glad to see everybody worked out.
Tim, and I apologize, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you for getting through that. So I didn't say that, but thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to approve it.
I move that we approve the Measure O committee recommendations and the amendments for the contract for the Weed Recreation and Parks District and their allocations for 2023-24 and 2024-25 fiscal years.
A second?
A second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None opposed. Okay. On to item D. This is discussion only. And the council receive a presentation on the city's legal authority and options for pursuing code enforcement. So I would just let the council know that we want to keep this as neutral as possible at this point in time, as far as names and calling people out. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, David Ruderman, your city attorney. I believe at the last council meeting, there was a request by the council for a short presentation related to code enforcement, what the city's options are, and how those options are implemented. So I've done my best to provide really an overview of code enforcement. So tonight, we're going to talk about some general principles. The options for code enforcement, there are obviously criminal prosecution options. I will not be discussing those this evening. And if you have questions about that, you're welcome to ask. Please feel free to interrupt me at any time, and there will also be time at the end. We'll discuss administrative citations and the administrative code enforcement process, nuisance abatement, whether that is through the administrative process, which occurs in the city, or through a civil action in court. And then we'll briefly touch on receiverships. So as you likely know, code enforcement derives from our municipal code and from our uniform codes, the building codes, electrical codes, which are incorporated by reference into the municipal code. The city has the authority to enforce those requirements. And really, staff is the first line of defense when it comes to code enforcement. I think most public agencies seek voluntary compliance. Oftentimes, property owners, once they're aware that they are in violation, will do their best to come into compliance. But there is certainly an education component, which is key to the entire process. That is something that staff works on, and hopefully something I never have to hear about. Most smaller public agencies are complaint-driven in their code enforcement. They just simply don't have the resources to be proactive in searching out code violations. You'd have to discuss with your staff how that works here, but I believe it is, for the most part, complaint-driven and staff-initiated, if staff sees something when they're just out and about. Often that will involve an inspection, written reports, and the first step is really to ask for the ability to come onto a property and inspect it. So when we're dealing with a hazardous condition on someone's property, then the constitutional protections of property rights comes into play. Obviously, if someone gives permission to enter their property, then our code enforcement staff has a right to come on and review the property for code violations. If that's not possible, then an inspection warrant is the next option, which I'll get to in a minute.
Is the council considered, do we have to make a formal complaint, in other words, written? Or in other words, if I see something, I know if staff sees something, that's one thing. How is council's position on that?
You'd have to talk to staff about how they would want that handled. You are residents of the city of Weed, just like anyone else, and you have the ability to make complaints. However, you also are elected officials, and certainly your complaints, from a practical perspective, hold considerable more weight than perhaps some other complaints that people get, especially when it's really a neighbor versus neighbor situation. So I think staff needs to be sensitive to that, and you need to be sensitive to that when you have complaints.
What kind of action is necessary to take it from to a formal complaint or a?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how the city of Weed handles those. Different cities handle them differently. Some cities have forms on their website that you can fill out and submit. Some cities have forms that you can fill out when you come in.
Well, actually, my question would be more like, how do you get an inspection warrant?
Okay, we'll get to that.
Oh, get there? Okay,
Yeah.
all right, never mind. I'm done.
I do want to just briefly touch on the legal basis for this authority, and it really comes from the California Constitution. All cities have police powers to enforce health and safety ordinances and to enforce nuisance laws. So in terms of the division of labor, your job as a city council is to enact the ordinances that are enforced. Your job is to declare what is or is not a public nuisance. And we have a number of ordinances that do that. Your job is to adopt, for example, the building codes. It's then staff's job to actually enforce those code provisions. It's not the city council's job. Just like we have a separate attorney general who is separate from the California legislature, we have staff, and our municipal code specifically provides that it's the police chief, it's the fire chief, it's the building inspector who are charged with enforcing the provisions of our code. And that's important because enforcement decisions are prosecutorial decisions, and the law recognizes the discretion that prosecutors have in determining which municipal code violations to enforce and which to not enforce. And that's a balancing act based on, the finances of the city, the interests of justice, the priorities for enforcement. So I just wanted to make that clear, that there is that sort of division of labor. So inspection warrants. If you knock on the door and you ask to come in and take a look and they say no, then if you have a reasonable basis to believe that there's a violation, you can get an inspection warrant. It's a relatively simple process, but you do need to have a declaration that lays out what facts you have that gives you a reasonable basis to believe that there is a code violation occurring on the property. And a judge has to review it and decide that it's okay, and that's because we have a right against unreasonable searches and seizures in the U.S. Constitution.
So if there's an owner of the building and somebody's renting it, and you went and knocked on the door and asked if you could come in to look for a code violation, the person renting could let you in?
Yes.
Okay.
The person
Wouldn't
in
have to be the
possession,
owner.
the person in possession can allow you
Renter
to.
has possession, so yeah.
So as I said, so this is a court issues this there, normally this is just something you get to look. You can go on the property during daytime hours. You do need to give notice that you're coming first. And then once you go on the property, you do the inspection. You should write up what you found. You should take photographs, document the conditions, and then you file what's called a return with the court that just explains that you executed the warrant and these were your findings, and that sort of closes out the case. You're not supposed to use the warrant necessarily to find evidence of crimes. This is just, you have to lay out what your reasonable basis is to look. If you find something that's similar but not necessarily listed, that's okay. But you can't, turn it into a criminal prosecution all of a sudden. It's an inspection warrant. You're just there to inspect.
So this might be in the weeds, but I have a question regarding, obviously someone who's a resident, a renter, or a leaseholder for that property can allow in good faith inspection. The way California specifically is recognizing squatters' rights, even though they go against federal constitutional rights, if there is someone who is, say, squatting on a property or presenting themselves as a leasee, where does that leave our staff? If we have a community service officer go to a site that is a concern, and someone is apparently inhabiting that land or that building in question, and they say, yeah, come on in and inspect it, where does that leave us liability-wise? Is that still considered a reasonable entry? Are we allowed to go in at that point?
If we have no reason to suspect that the person who is apparently in possession of the property and has granted us access to it, as long as we don't have a reasonable basis to believe that they don't have that authority, then there shouldn't be any liability for that. The problem would come where there's a person who says that you can't come on their property, but they don't actually have a lease, for example.
I'm more concerned about liability for our staff. If they go to a building that is a potential nuisance and there's someone that's a squatter there and they say, yeah, come on in, and have a look, that there's no legal recourse against our staff for doing so because we don't have a way to verify their contract.
There are a host of governmental immunities that cities and counties have when it comes to, enforcing their municipal codes. These are, again, these are discretionary actions, and there's discretionary immunities that flow from those actions that are provided by the government code.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good question.
Yes.
Now, issuing the warrant, so the city's going to issue the warrant,
The court issues the warrant.
the court is going to, so we're actually going to.
We have to get a
court.
warrant, just like you would, just like the
Superior
police
Court.
would need to get a warrant to search somebody for evidence of a crime. We would get a warrant to search for evidence of a code violation.
Okay, thanks.
So then there is the administrative code enforcement option. And when I say administrative, what I really mean is code enforcement that happens within the city, where the city is essentially providing the process for abating a nuisance or remedying a code violation. So some of the things that we do is that we have fines that we can levy on anyone who violates the code. We can provide warning, notice of a violation, so a notice that someone is maintaining their property as a nuisance or as a substandard housing property. Those notices can be recorded against the property so that it sort of creates a kind of a cloud on the title, so to speak, and that it would inform any potential purchaser that there's an issue that the city is pursuing with respect to that property. When you identify a violation that exists, you have to then provide them with notice of what that violation is and what needs to be done to remedy it, and you need to give them a reasonable time to fix it. And you need to do all this before you start levying fines. There are different time, the time that you give them has to be reasonable, so there's no bright line. If it's a health and safety hazard that's an imminent danger, you don't have to really give them any time to fix it. But if it's not, then you do need to give them some amount of time, 30 days, whatnot. But when you are when you're basically citing somebody and telling them that they violated the law, you have to give them an administrative remedy. You have to give them the ability to be heard with respect to their point of view regarding the violation. Well, I don't think it's a violation because X, Y, and Z. And so we have to allow for a hearing before an unbiased decision maker. And that is a requirement, again, of our constitutional right to due process. We are attempting to deprive someone of either a property right or an interest in property, and so we need to give them due process of law in order to do that. And all of these steps are spelled out in our municipal code, as they are in any city that does this.
But it sounds like these remedies can be done. It's not like every time this council needs to do something, we got to wait to council meeting, direct the staff, and then get something 30 days later saying how we've progressed. This sounds like you can just go in, get the warrant, and then proceed from there. It doesn't have to come back to the council, or should never, I mean, just
None of this goes to the
administrative.
council. None of this goes to the council.
Okay, gotcha.
So if staff observes a violation, or if they believe there's a violation and they can't get in, they get an inspection warrant, they find a violation, they provide the property owner with the notice of violation that says, here's the problem, here's what you need to do to fix it, here's how much time you have. At the end of that time period, if they haven't fixed it, you'll be able to then cite them, or you'll be able to pursue actual abatement, which means going onto the property and fixing it ourselves, and then putting the cost of that, of fixing it, onto the property owner. And through all these steps, you have to provide them with an administrative remedy. So they can slow things down often by appealing decisions. So in our ordinance, if someone were to appeal a notice of violation or a citation that's imposed, those go to a hearing officer. They do not go to the council. Some cities go to the council. It's a much more cumbersome and a much lengthier process when you have to go to the council. That hearing officer will then provide the due process rights that are required by the Constitution and by our code. So our code lays out the process for appeals. And then at that point, if they still disagree with the decision, they could essentially appeal it to a court. And at that point, it would become not administrative anymore. Now you'd be in a court of law. But if they don't, then we can move forward with the administrative process. So under our government code, any violation that's considered an infraction, so there's felonies, misdemeanors, and infractions, so like traffic tickets are infractions. You can be fined $100 for the first violation, $200 for the second, $500 for the third, and each subsequent within 1 year. And each separate day that a violation exists is a separate violation. So, so you maintaining solid waste all over your property, I mean, there's just rodents everywhere, right? You've created a nuisance. So the first day that is noticed and that you failed to correct it in that reasonable time, you can get fined $100. The second day it's still there, you could potentially get fined $200 for the second day, the third day $500, and so on. And after that, it would be $500, $500, $500. Building and safety code violations are actually higher, so the government code allows us to impose slightly higher fines for building and safety code violations under the building codes. And then at some point, those fines are going to pile up, and those are all a debt to the city. And so either you take those to debt collection, you go to small claims court to get them, but there's also some authority that you can actually impose them as a lien or a special assessment onto the property. And this is actually the place where the council may be involved. I believe that this requires a hearing before the council where it laid out the costs and the fines that have been amassing against a particular property. Those come to the council. You make any corrections you think are necessary, and then that's taken to the recorder's office and recorded on the property as a lien or as a special assessment, and then collected on the tax roll or upon a foreclosure or sale of the property. So that's a way to get the money back, basically. And this applies not really, it can apply to fines, although there is some legal ambiguity there, but it certainly applies to abatement costs. And I don't think I have a slide on that. So like, for example, you have a home that's full of solid waste that is a health and safety danger. You've provided a reasonable time to correct it. They have not. You then get a warrant to go on and remove the solid waste, right? You hire a contractor to come on, clean off the property, and take it to the dump. The contractor sends you a bill. That cost can then be recorded on the property as a special assessment and then collected on the tax rolls.
So in a hypothetical situation, say I own a house and that house is missing windows and part of a roof and is a safety violation for the neighboring house or for the kids walking from school in the street or what have you, and I fail within a reasonable time to correct the issue as that property owner, would the city then need to pay the cost of those repairs under that abatement to bring that house to code before it goes further?
If the property owner does not fix the problem, then the city has the option of paying for it, but then imposing that cost onto the property owner through the tax roll. So eventually the city will get its money back, but it may not be right away.
But it is influenced with, you have to catch up on your property taxes within 7 years.
Right.
So it could be at most a 7-year
Yeah,
gap.
and I'm not sure if Siskiyou County is part of the Teeter plan, where in some counties if you do a special assessment, then the county will actually pay you the special assessment amount for that tax year. And then they essentially will have
Ownership.
the lien for that amount. And so whenever that property is sold, or if there's a foreclosure, they will be paid later. And I'm not sure if Siskiyou County does that. That's something that you'd have to talk to our county recorder about.
At all
Otherwise,
times
it would wait for a foreclosure or a sale.
at all times, is the owner of the property given notice?
They have to be given notice,
Okay.
yes. Right, so even if there's a tenant who's allowed you entry, all of these notices are gonna have to go to the property owner.
Okay.
Which can be a problem, because oftentimes, property is owned by some out-of-state corporation, and there's just some random, agent for service of process in Wyoming, and we don't know who that person is, and you send stuff there. We have to cross all of our Ts and dot our Is, or sometimes, people have passed away, and they don't have a next of kin. And so it's very difficult to figure out who the owner is anymore. So these are the complicating factors that really make it code enforcement difficult. But those are the things that staff and I have to deal with.
There's always a next of kin.
Did you have a question, Councilmember
No,
Mazzoni?
you answered it, because that's exactly what
Yeah.
I would say. Well, this could go on, return, not answered, return, you could go.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, the notice has to be provided. Whether or not they receive it is not we can't do anything about that. We just have to make sure that we've given them the notice to the location that's listed on the tax roll or whatnot.
But isn't there a time factor of how many, I can't remember, if you send out, say, 4 letters, which I've done it before, and all 4 come back, it's returned. Is there a time factor? I don't recall. Chief might be able to answer that.
So your question, is there a time factor
Well,
on,
like I say, if you send out 4 letters, you do your due diligence and and then get a return 4 different times and say 4 months or whatever.
so I think what the solution to what you're saying is you can actually post the property.
Yeah.
That you,
That's what I
right,
want.
go down and physically post the property.
That's what I want.
The other issue, question I would have for council is, would a foreign LLC be required to have a registered, I know to do business in the state, they have to have a California registered agent. What about a property owning corporation?
I mean, they should at least have a registered agent listed in the state where they're incorporated.
Right, but and I thought under the corporations code in California, a foreign LLC had to have a registered agent to do business in the state.
That's quite possible.
And
But that agent may not be located in the state.
well, I believe we have, and it goes along with this discussion, I believe we have some foreign LLCs that don't have a registered agent within the state, so that's also gonna be a problem.
So basically, the registered rep who has to have an address in the state of California that's deliverable?
I don't know if that's true.
Okay.
They have to have an agent
Okay.
with an address. Where that person is, where that address is, I'm not exactly sure if it's required to be in California.
Okay.
All right, so administrative citations. We have the government code allows cities to impose administrative citations for code violations, provided we have an ordinance that allows that, and we do. The citation essentially is like a ticket, and enforcement officers are allowed to issue those when they identify code violations. The citation has to provide certain amount of information on there about how to challenge it, et cetera. Again, you do have to be allowed the opportunity to challenge that, so that's, again, the due process issue. And again, in this case, we have hearing officers are, I think it's the city manager that designates the hearing officers for those administrative citations. These are a very quick and easy way to impose a penalty for people who violate our code. the money that we receive is retained by the city. It doesn't go to the state or anything like that. But it obviously can sometimes, be a confrontational situation, and there are now actually rules about ensuring the safety of code enforcement officers. We do have that obligation as a city to protect our employees. And so it can often be a stressful situation. I did go over this already, what the citations can be, and that's provided again by the government code for infractions. Our municipal code says that any violation of the code is an infraction unless it's been identified as a misdemeanor and I decide that it should be prosecuted as a misdemeanor. Basically what this means is that anytime the code is violated, we can cite somebody for that violation. A misdemeanor prosecution is expensive, it's time-consuming, and it's something that that we can delegate to the district attorney, but the district attorney, there's no district attorney's office that has the time or the money to prosecute a municipal code misdemeanor violation. So that's often, practically speaking, that's why we're not talking about criminal prosecution, really. Another option, okay, so what we have been talking about is the administrative process. The other process is the process in civil court. So we can abate a nuisance through the civil process. And that basically means we would have to file a lawsuit against a property owner to get a court order telling the property owner to fix their property, to abate the nuisance. And that would require council direction. We can't sue somebody without the council's authorization. It can be very effective. It can sometimes be somewhat faster than going through all the steps. But it still requires the same amount of background. I mean, now you're dealing with a court, with a judge, and a judge who's familiar with the rules of evidence is going to require that we have documented all of the issues involved and the fact that the individual has failed to correct those issues. We do need to give them an opportunity to fix things before we take them to court. But that is an option. So we've got some pros and cons here. The court can, as I said, they can give us a court order to enter the property, correct the violations, to even demolish a property if that's what's necessary. It's the burden of proof is obviously easier than in a criminal case. And it's the court that's making these decisions. It's not some hearing officer or some city council member. So in that way, the city is somewhat insulated from whatever political ramifications there could be. It can be costly. I mean, the city has to pay for attorney's fees, for staff time. And, if there's the opportunity then for discovery, so you might end up, if you've got a litigious property owner, they may want to try to bury you in document requests and deposition requests and those types of things, which can be quite difficult and costly as well. And we should be able to get attorney's fees if we're successful, but sometimes, you can never say for sure whether or not you're going to be successful in the end.
So I have a question on that from the civil side. Aside from the city, so again, a hypothetical, if we have two property owners in the city limits and one property owner has complained to the city because the property next to them is causing a nuisance, whether it be from, it's run down, there's illicit activity, maybe, arson, things like that have occurred that are a danger to the neighboring property owners, can those property owners then take that civilly to court, or does it have to go through the city as a nuisance complaint?
No, a property owner has the ability to bring a complaint for a private nuisance. So the city can enforce public nuisances, and those are the ones that the council has declared to be nuisances. But a private nuisance is something where a property owner has affected the health and safety and ability of a neighbor, for example, to enjoy their property in peace. And so that's a private nuisance, and people have the ability to bring those cases as well against a neighbor.
But in the case of the city of Weed's ordinances, because I'm familiar with the county ordinances and how that works for Siskiyou County in general, but for the city of Weed, that property owner doesn't have to come to the city first. They can go directly with a complaint to the court against another property.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we get to abatement warrants. So whether we've done the administrative process and we have noticed a violation and given the property owner the ability to appeal that notice of violation, or we've gone to the court, in the end, what we can get and what we'll need to get to go on to the property and fix it is the abatement warrant. This is the permission from the court to enter someone's private property and demolish the house, clean up the trash, board up the windows. And this is provided once there's been a determination, whether it's by the hearing officer in the administrative context or by the judge in the civil context. They've made the determination that there is in fact a nuisance on this property. And so again, it's a warrant, so it will describe the location, what exactly is to be abated, et cetera. And it allows the city to go on the property and correct the violations. And then the last thing that we're here to talk about is receiverships. A receivership is something that you can only get from a court. You have to file a lawsuit. It's basically the last option amongst all of these. You can't really get a receivership unless you've gone through all these other options and you've exhausted them and none of them work. Because essentially what happens is the court appoints a third party to take control of the property and bring it into compliance. And essentially it's the receiver that has control over the property supervised by the court as opposed to the property owner. So it's drastic in that it actually takes property away from somebody. If it's denied, if the receivership is denied, we could be liable to pay the costs of the person that we sued. And if funds, because what happens is essentially the property is fixed and the receiver fixes it up and then sells the property and uses the proceeds to pay for the cost to fix it. And if that is insufficient, and it doesn't compensate the receiver, et cetera, then we could be ordered to pay for that. So it also only works in cases where the property has enough value that we are sure that it's going to be sufficient to pay the cost to fix up the property, pay the receiver, and still have some money left over, right? So these are all considerations that you have to think about when you are pursuing a receivership. So it's good in that it's good if it has the money, if there's enough funds in there to fix the code violations. It does give you super priority of liens, which means that the receiver's costs are paid first, even if there's a tax lien or something on there, or a lien from a mortgagee or something like that. The receiver only reports to the court, and the property owner can't interfere with what the receiver is doing with the property. And then the funds for repairs and the receiver are secured by the property as ordered by the court. But it is, as I said, a drastic remedy. You have to have notice and an opportunity to correct violations first. It can be expensive, and it should be used in the unique circumstances where other attempts have failed. Okay, and then last, there are other remedies, and these are ones that John works with really, which is red tagging or yellow tagging a property based on immediate threats to health and safety. And that's where they can prevent people from occupying it if it's, or restrict the use under a yellow tag. And then these are the kind of defenses that you would see from a property owner were they to appeal and take it to court. One is that the ordinance that determines what is a violation or what is a nuisance is vague, and so they didn't really understand, they didn't have adequate notice that what they were doing was a violation. Estoppel is actually very rare, which is the case where the situation where the city kind of let something go for a really, really long time and knew about it but didn't do anything about it. People often say, well, I've been doing this for years, and Joe Blow was the people from the city have been here many times and you guys never did anything about it. Now, why now? That is usually not a good defense at all. So, but it's something you'll hear. And then there's the procedural aspects. So, you violated my due process rights when you did this. You didn't provide me with adequate notice under the law. Or there is some type of equal protection problem. You're singling me out because I am of a protected classification, and your enforcement officers don't like people of this protected class. Those are claims that you'll hear. Or preemption. So state law precludes local regulation. That's true for some things. And with that, I have completed my presentation, so I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
I have none, because I'm familiar with what, and the receivership, I remember doing one time on a receivership. That was tough to do. That was a tough one, because the person that had access to the funds, they ran out of money. So it returned back to the person who owned it, who was deceased. So it's kind of a different situation, so.
Yeah, I mean, because the reason I brought up receivers is because the people who do receiverships have been very successful at marketing their services in the last 5-10 years. And so I've talked to a lot of cities and local elected officials who just sort of think, oh, let's just do a receiver. And it's not the first thing that you do, right? That's just wanted to make that clear.
They were selling all the property off. I'm like, you can do that? Yeah, the judge said we can.
So for me, all of this is good information. How do we start a process to we kind of already know a number of properties, but they're getting to be more and more in this city. And it seems like it's a little bit infectious. It's starting to hit the south end of town as well. We have 2 buildings up at the south end. Dos Amigos, so I don't know if I want to.
Yeah, I don't think it's
Wise?
a good idea
Okay.
to.
But there's a couple properties up at the south end that, again, they're vacant, they're run down. There's a couple that they're definitely wide open, even though they've been boarded, and they've been broken into, it looks like. Broken everywhere. See, I left it off for a reason, so nobody can hear me. So that, again, it becomes infectious on the south side, and this isn't getting better. So I would like some kind of, from my standpoint, to get, kind of make a grouping and pick the weak link and start up and move forward.
Mr. Mayor, I had a meeting earlier this week and visited with Dustin Reef, who's the city manager of the city of Dunsmuir. And they retained a firm down in Southern California that specializes, that's pretty much all they specialize is in code enforcement, nuisance, abatements, and receiverships. That's pretty much all they do. And I visited with this, one of the partners today of the firm, and he has given us the ability to provide, let's just say, 3 properties, addresses, and he'll do the research and come back with some potential direction And if we, without any cost to the city, and then if we choose to move forward, we can. And I know David's firm does some of that as well, but that's all this firm does. And from what I was told by Dustin and Dunsmuir is his counsel came up essentially with like a top 10 list of properties that are basically eyesores and nuisances within the city. And they're moving forward on those, you know, starting from number 1 all the way down to number 10. So that may be something we might want to take a look at some point if we want to get very aggressive with that. When I first got here, we did take a property owner to court, Superior Court, for receivership, and were ultimately denied. That individual right now owes the city over, I think, $90,000 in fines and court costs and attorney fees that we still haven't got a penny from. So there are some avenues for us to go there. I don't know if, you know, I haven't really visited with David much about this other firm. I just found this out a couple days ago and made the call just to kind of see what it was about. So, but that may be one direction if we want to get super aggressive with abatements, nuisances, and potential receiverships is doing it. But the problem is, as David alluded to when I first got here, the individual that we looked at with the receivership, one property in particular, the receiver, I mean, really didn't see any value in that property because they're not in it to lose money. And like David said, if they do lose money, then we're on the hook for that. So we have to be careful in those regards too. So
I do get that, but on the flip side of that, we're on the hook already.
Yeah, we are.
It's
costing us.
It's hindering development in the city.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
What's the cost for something to farm it outside the city?
Well, it just depends on each individual property, whether it becomes an abatement issue or a receivership. So I just talked to the firm today, but
I'd like numbers on that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying against it.
Yeah.
But I'd like some solid numbers
Sure.
of what it's going to cost.
And I think once they do an evaluation of, he said, just give me the name or the addresses of 3 properties that are in discussion. He goes, I'll do my research, my due diligence, and get back with you and let you know what my evaluation is of those properties, and then come back with you and visit. And if you want to move forward, we can. And if you don't, no harm, no foul.
Yeah, and sometimes I think some of these property owners, it's as if they are looking for properties in rural communities with lower budgets in their cities that kind of feed off it a little bit.
Yeah.
So, again.
I agree.
So.
Mr. Mayor, comment is, I think if we're really serious about this, I think we need something in the budget, or something that we put aside to say, yeah, we're serious with this, you know, or to go forward. Is that?
Yeah, that is an approach to take. I think a previous city that I was an assistant city manager, we started putting quite a bit of money into the demolition budget. I mean, that's the last thing you want to do with a piece of property, but sometimes you have to.
We need to get prepared.
And it's not cheap. Demolition is not cheap, but it's something, quite frankly, there's a theory out there, it'd be better to see an empty lot than it would be to see a building that is, you know, a major nuisance and causing issues within the community itself. So, I mean, that's something that we can definitely start looking towards, so.
And in this town, there are some properties that are probably not repairable.
Exactly.
And there are some, so for me, you have to watch what you attack.
But you got to be prepared for it, for the attack.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, you don't necessarily attach the biggest and the largest when you can maybe have success in something that's in the middle. So, anyway.
But shouldn't we rely some more on our staff, because this is what they do?
It's totally in the staff's hands, but I think it's.
The bigger projects, I could agree with something like that, but they're more than capable of taking care of that. Can we ask the chief what his opinion is on it? I mean, just because I'm familiar.
It's going to come down to how much you want to spend. just one building in particular on Main Street. We can write a warrant, an inspection warrant, but once we get in there, nobody on staff is qualified to make the assessment of the building. You're looking, I'm speaking with the building department, I believe it's probably $15,000 to $20,000 for somebody to come in and make the assessment on whether that building's even salvageable. That's just one of potentially 10 that you have on Main Street.
So
And I'm laying that out
structural
there.
would be,
And that's why I say you may not might not be wise to take on the largest. You take on something that's the smallest.
Well,
Because if you take on the largest, it's easier to give up something that has no value.
I can say
than
over
it
the
is to
last
have
3 years to 4 years, there's 10 buildings on Main Street that we have dealt with in various stages of public nuisance. Some of the owners have corrected things. We had one that needed a roof. They did put the roof on it. We've had others that, were a public safety issue that they've addressed. But that's not going to make the building an eyesore go away. They just removed some windows, put some boards up. In another case, they did fix some open pits that was a danger. One wasn't on Main Street, but just last night, we have one building that flooded on the second level. It's commercial residential. That wasn't on Main Street. And we have another one that, for the second time, had a large water break, and that building needs some major attention and is not getting it, is only getting worse by the day, so.
I guess my question is, or my observation is, how do you let it get to this point? No, I mean, I'm not putting blame on anything. I'm just looking at what I drive through and see every
Well, I
day.
think a lot of it has to come to do with the previous budgets, previous councils, previous staff.
Owners of the building.
It's actually in private property issues that we've dealt with. I mean, there are restrictions on how much we
I
can,
understand
we
that,
can
Mr.
do.
Mayor.
But,
I
I
think
think
that.
it's just time for a strategy, and I think starting off with the lawyers would be a good strategy.
I think
and then coming out-
Dunsmuir's approach as to prioritizing the most
buildings.
egregious on down is a good strategy because, they're and one of the most, top, I don't want to say offenders, but you have to look at, that may be the most expensive one for us to have an endeavor into too. These aren't going to be cheap. Like you just said, just to hire a structural engineer to come in and take a look at it and see if it's salvageable, that's going to be money. I mean, all these are going to.
It's not going to be free, Mr. Manager. It's just not going to.
Oh, no.
It's going to cost money.
So.
But I'm saying that's why I asked in my comments, that I would like to see some updates of
Sure.
where this is at. And I know one particular building we're talking about, that big one, that's one issue that, what you're mentioning, that is a good one to probably go with, that company.
Well, it becomes a
I'd like
safety
to add
issue.
something, if I could. Mark, as far as, the history of this, basically, is we start off trying to work, we're working with property owners. And then it becomes, after 5 years, you kind of understand that you're getting, somebody's feeding you a line. But, the number one thing is preparing, having a budget to actually go forward in this. But the other thing is that we like receivership. We worked on receivership. We have buildings that it doesn't pencil out. Mm-hmm. It doesn't pencil out. There's repairing it is not going to work. And we're really talking. We're looking at the reality of, we're going to take the responsibility to go in and we're going to demolish this building. Is this going to have to come down if we make that commitment? So it's tough, and we are at that point now where we do look kind of. I catch a lot of people saying, "Well, how come you haven't done anything?" And I think number one is committing the funds to do it and to pencil it out afterwards. What's going to happen? There, like David showed us, there's quite a bit of money that we're liable when we're out here playing this game of doing what needs to be done.
So I think that, we have a lot of issues, both residential and commercial. The issues are growing, and it is a budgetary problem. So I think the first thing we need to do is to come up with a budget and a plan, a roadmap on, what our expected capital outlay is going to be to enforce our ordinances fair and equitably amongst all of the potential nuisance properties. And then, as, city manager was just laying out, we need to prioritize those in a matrices that we can go, in this case, 3 major concerns that are public and safety issues. I mean, we have a lot of potential nuisances that need to be abated. My vision is that the city is going to take this on and we're going to pay to fix every, reprobate building that we have. We need to push the enforcement to, get the property owners to manage and repair their own properties. This is not something that the citizens of Weed should be paying for through city funds. In the worst case scenario where we have 1 or 2 buildings that doesn't happen and we have to look at maybe a potential receivership, if that's a health and safety nuisance, then we go that route. And so I think the first step is going to be, looking at our budgetary constraints where we can, shuffle some things or add to the next budget cycle, as well as going through and making those citations and starting the abatement processes. We need to focus on getting people's attention and letting them know they need to be notified. Now, certainly there are property owners that are horribly egregious that are aware or not within potentially mental or financial faculty to deal with something they're aware of. But there may be property owners that we go to and say, this is an issue and we need this corrected. And we're asking you to correct this before we go to citations of fines and things like that. Because I think that because things have gone on for so long, so many decades, and because it's starting to spread, a lot of property owners are getting lax. If people on the street don't mow their lawns in the summertime until the fire department tells them to clean it up, then the people in the next street are going to do the same thing because they unfortunately, it's human nature to look at people around you and go with the crowd. And so, a rising tide raises all ships. We need to start getting everybody involved to clean that up.
So would it be to our advantage to have this company look at
I will
this
talk.
firm?
Yeah, I will talk to this firm.
and see what they can,
And
it's not going to cost us
It's not going to cost
anything.
anything for just the first evaluation of 3 buildings, he said. And there may be some additional savings. Maybe we can piggyback with Dunsmuir because
I'm sure it's all the same owners.
there's
Some of them.
there are some of them, I can assure you that.
Yeah.
And,
Sure one.
Yep. So,
Well, and it doesn't hurt to get the information on a free
agree.
consultation. I
Yeah.
think that's a
totally
great
agree
plan.
with that.
Yeah.
That's not what I was saying. I just would like cost on.
Sure.
What it would be if we continue to go on.
I'll move forward and get with.
So we know.
Yeah, get with
And
the-
he may have that information, that
No, and he may.
that firm
that's
may
all I'm
have that
asking. I'm
information.
just
Yeah.
And
like all the
we
information.
do have an opportunity here due to the Roseburg situation where we did get some that we could
Yeah.
put that to a cause that would potentially generate more income to the city.
Sure.
If those buildings were potentially full with active businesses, that money comes back to us.
Yeah, I mean,
And that's an important factor.
Some of those funds were for future losses of revenue. I see this as a future loss of revenue as well. I mean,
yeah.
when we've got,
We have to figure it out somewhere.
yes, we do.
I just think that if we have a goal that we all as citizens and in council, you're gonna see a different change in people's attitudes when they see this. There's gonna wanna be businesses coming in, but right now, and it's no one's fault. This is what it is. And I wouldn't wanna move in here. I wouldn't want it to put a business downtown or what I'm seeing. I just think that would make a huge difference because we've all got that. When are you gonna do anything about downtown? When are you gonna do anything about downtown? Well, we need to jump up and do something about downtown.
I want to thank David for your presentation.
David, thank you.
I'd like to go on to staff reports now. Start off with Brian. You got anything for us, Brian?
Just quick, I left the report for you for the last month. We have a sleeper moving out tonight. He's actually been with us for 3 years, so that's pretty good. Done a lot of time with us. I have a new volunteer from the Fire Academy going to be starting tomorrow. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks. Jill, welcome. Mind you'll introduce you. I think everybody knows you, but we better do introductions, I think. We just see you passing in the hall.
got the mic right. Oh, I do.
Yeah, you do.
Yep, you're good to go.
Nothing much. I mean, we're just about wrapping up 21, 22 audit. We're still a little behind, but that's right at the tail end, and then we can start 22, 23 audit. Public Works audit, I think, just wrapped up, pretty much. I mean, we're close. They had another request, so just moving forward, one day at a time. Still a lot of stuff to do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Craig, Public Works.
Yeah, I got a couple things to touch on some of our grants and projects that we currently have going on. For our water and sewer project, our CDBG project over here, the water system, all that's left is to tie onto the mill and get them, now they'll be off our old line and it's gonna be capped, they're gonna have 1 meter. And then we're gonna start on the sewer coming down from the school to Davis Court. That's all in this grant, and this was a $2.4 million grant that we're working on.
That's what all the writing on the road is.
Yeah.
All the, I don't know what it means, I just saw it.
And then, of course, on our mill fire replacement project over there, that is a Prop 1 monies, and we're looking about $748,000 over there, and the water main is connected and live. The water is extended to all the property owners on Wakefield and that, so we can put our meters in. Over on Kennedy, Alameda, we're getting those tied in, and then Kennedy, we're gonna go in and tie some water meters in there also.
That the next one behind Alameda?
Yeah, so we're getting all those turned over to these new systems, and they're coming along good, they're going fast. So they're about, as a matter of fact, we just looked at the bill today, about 88% on the contract being done with that project, so.
And you don't have to do the other side of the highway?
No.
Because it was already done?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. But on the other side of the highway, we're looking at the USDA grant that we're working on. Pace and ourselves, we're working on that. We're looking at, they've committed to $196,000 to go into manholes on our force main that's going out to the plant, not our force main, but our main that's going out to the sewer plant, and cleaning the lines. And they've committed to about $154,000 in curb and gutter and stuff on the east side. And they committed to $250,000 for generators for the Mazay well and the Carrick well. Because with power outages and that kind of stuff, we convinced them that we're gonna get those generators, so that's huge for us, through the USDA. Also, upon looking at the USDA grants today, we came across something, and Sandy sent the information down already. There is a possibility that we'll get 75% of that flusher truck money back if we can tie it into the fire. So that's just
Excellent.
brand new today, so that may go away, it may not, but anyway. They did approve some for equipments, and that's, we're trying to throw that together to ship that up there, so that would be really nice if we got that, that'd be a big plus. Our bypass water is out to bid. That's about a $5 million construction bid.
That's one downtown?
Yes, it'll be going Lake Street, Bowles, and up to the tank. And gonna be doing some work up in the Bel Air area, putting in valves and different things, and some work on the boulevard. We'll get all that water line put low enough so when they concrete it, it won't be in the way. So that one is out to bid. I think the bids are December 5th or 6th or something to come back in. And
Can they do that can they work on that in the winter?
No, it'll be a spring job, but there are some parts of it, if we can get it awarded by the next council meeting, which I will see. There are some alleys and different places they could do some winter work that we could work on. So.
And so then could we get that money to repave next year, or to repave Lake Street, or is that gonna be put off for another year?
No.
Well, the money's there.
Right, we can't put it off.
Oh, we gotta take it? This year?
So hopefully we can get the underground done before the paving comes.
Yeah.
I'm kind of hoping maybe the same contractor will get that, because that STIP money, we've requested a 6-month extension that's going to be on the January CTC agenda. We were told we had it, and then somehow it never got paperwork back to us, so
Did it
anyway.
get fixed?
We're working on it for January CTC.
Okay,
It got dropped somewhere, not here, so, but that's all right.
yeah.
We'll get it. The Bulls Creek grant down there for the stormwater, we are finishing that up. All the permitting and stuff, we're getting close on getting that tied up, and then hopefully we can go out to apply for a construction grant in early January, February, try to get that Bulls Creek taken care of.
Sounds like you've been doing your work.
There's a lot going on.
That's for sure.
And
How about
back on-
Cal OES? We got any of that yet?
Well, that's why I mentioned USDA. That's all stuff that Cal OES hasn't funded. We're working with OES. They want to know what we're going to get from other people, which is not the way it should work. OES should be here for us with a disaster instead of saying, try to find funds from somewhere else and we'll pick up what's left, but I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever get anything out of
Well, just
OES.
remember when you go to the voting booth, who's in power right now, which is the Dollies. But anyway, just saying that politically, I don't hold any weight. I don't care. But they are who they are.
I've talked to past OES workers that yes, that we would have, I mean, we've dealt with OES before. We all know they were great, so. And also, we're out to bid on our SCADA system, which that is money that we're having that's left over from the, this water sewer project that we're doing. This will be our 3rd time out to bid. We received 1 bid the first time. The second time, we received 1 bid late. So this time, we need to get 2 bids, a minimum, to award that contract, but that's gonna be somewhere around $200,000, which is gonna be grant money.
And where's that?
That's gonna be on my water tanks, in my computer system, in my wells. Constant problems with those, and nobody will touch them because they're too old to even look at, so. But hopefully we'll get another bidder this time and we'll be able to award it and
We're just looking at the old water tanks then, right?
everything. Even the new well and everything. That in the wells, the new well has the capabilities in it. A lot of the other ones, it'll just be radios and that kind of stuff, which will actually be going with cell towers. And so we don't have any radio interference or anything like that. And if one cell tower is down, it automatically jumps to another one. And there's gonna be annual fees with that the grant's we're trying to get the grant to pay for the first 10 years of it. And then after that, there'll be annual fees. So that is gonna be a cost, but it's gonna be well worth it if we got a reliable system that you can look at on your phone and see what's going on, so.
That would have come in real handy during the mill fire,
Yes,
because we had.
Every
tank-
fire, we've gotten a little bit of an advancement.
yes.
Yeah, well, yeah, but when the tankers were coming in and taking waters from, I mean, it was a mess.
Yeah.
So that's about all I got.
That's
It
quite a
won't be
bit.
as long next month.
Is he gonna, are they gonna come in and paint the parking lot soon? Stripe the parking lot?
We need to do that.
Oh, we do?
Yes, that parking lot contract is over. Yes, that's gotta be something at the Suns that either we have to do or not have.
Nancy just had somebody do the community center. I don't know who.
Yeah, I don't know. But it was
Ask her.
planned on us getting it done, which we're kind of running out of time on. My guys are really busy with all these projects going on.
I can do 2 cans of spray paint.
I know, but I thought there was somebody in town that was their,
Now, it comes out of Wairika. He done the post office, he done theirs. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
We can get a quote from them.
Yeah, but people know how to park in weed. We shouldn't have to draw them lines.
what?
Wider, you're all right.
Yeah,
We're good.
Just get the stencils, we get it out of here, we're good.
yeah, we got
I'll
this.
help you.
We got
On to Justin. Chief?
I don't have a lot. You might see some of my officers with a little more scruff than usual. For the first time ever, I've lacks the policy to where they can participate in the No Shave November to raise cancer awareness. Not letting them go all out where you have the craziest beard contest. We are participating, but I'm still holding them to some standard, but, so you'll see that through the month. I just want to remind the public that, there was a post on social media on a community page. Don't believe everything that you see on social media. It did cause a little bit of a stir amongst some people. I can say that 95 to 90% of what was posted by that person was inaccurate and didn't happen at all. And that we were aware of an incident, not what was posted on social media, but it was nowhere near the level that was posted, so.
It's a good thing some of us just don't listen to that place.
Did it start out by saying rumor has it?
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
John, do we have anything from Building Department extra?
Well, the only thing,
You thought of something.
power at Robert Thomas's house.
Mhm.
Well, we have to be aware that could happen at the other house on the other side of 97, because that house is substantially long in construction. Mr. Baker said, what, about 5 weeks? That could happen there also. So we just have to be aware of that.
Well, at least the public at least heard the explanations, and we're just not out in a vacuum there.
Right.
I'm still not happy, and I don't think Tim's happy. I don't think anybody's happy about not having it.
The house on the east side on Railroad Avenue, from what I understand, those owners have another house that they live in. So it might not be an issue, but just something to be aware of.
And I think Robert right now is kind of hanging on over it. I'm sure he'd rather be in his house, without a doubt, but, yeah.
That's all I have.
Thanks, John. Sandy Dandy.
Hello. Actually, I am going to say something this time. I normally don't. I know.
Hold on, let me get my camera out.
So, I did take a walk down to the creek the other day, and that is we have a very nice creek that runs under Main Street. It's absolutely beautiful down there. If I had waiters, I would have gone in and gotten a few things, but it's beautiful. But on my way, and in light of current conversations, on my way walking down Main Street, and although it's not what it used to be, and I've been here for 30 years, I did want to thank some of the business owners and building owners because there has been a positive move. We have Martin and Diana with Cedar Lanes. They've improved that building. I think everybody's been in there. We have Tim and Brandy Rendell that have the bakery. That's been improved. It looks great. It needs a new tenant. If anyone wants to put in a pizza parlor, that'd be great. We do have Councilmember Parham for his business on Main Street.
Yeah.
I was looking through your windows as I walked by.
Getting there.
Pets Kitchen.
But we have windows.
Yes. Pets Kitchen, that's what actually made me stop and think about this, is because there was a car, Florida plate, so obviously not a local, that stopped, and, Pets Kitchen gave them a reason to stop and have lunch. So that's what made me think about this. Elizabeth at La Florista and her boutique, if you can get it unlocked. I have spent a little bit of my payroll in there. Perfect Union, I have not spent any of my payroll there, but they have the building looks wonderful. Garrett Green, he's cleaned up the bar and it looks nice. And then also Mountain Market. So there is some positives on Main Street, and I think that we need to remember that and be thankful for that.
Well, we are thankful. We just want to introduce more to the atmosphere down there.
Very good.
Thank you, Sandy.
And mentioning Mountain Market, I'm amazed, because when we approved, that to go in, that place is hopping.
There's a lot of business.
Yeah, it's that little neighborhood market that people can walk to.
And actually, Dollar General has actually done a little bit of change their marketing as well, and I see a lot more people in that business. David?
No report.
You gave a long one already.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and Council, next month I will be, because David has kind of admonished me a couple times about some of my staff reports turning into what should have been council agenda items. But next month I will be talking to council in regards to how we're currently managing the delinquent list for our sanitation customers. Originally, we were going to do citations for the folks that didn't have cans available. And unfortunately, what we're up to now is, I just got a list from Chelsea. We have about 41 customers that are months behind. However, when you add up the delinquent accounts that she's currently showing right now, it equals to about $9,400, which equals about to, in franchise fees, for us, about $942. But if you look at, if we had to take, and I went and talked to Roxanne and some of our CSO and the chief, when you look at the manpower, the fuel, the administrative time, the certified mail, all these things to do an administrative citation, and then if they request a hearing, just out of the gate, each one of those is about $50. Just, I mean, that's on a low end. So if you take 41 times $50, that's $2,050. And of which we might get back some of it in franchise fees from there. So at some point, David and I discussed this before the meeting, we're going to have to either look at a couple different ways. We're going to have to move full force with the administrative citations, which is going to be costly and time consuming, or the other alternative is going to be possibly amending our ordinance to allow our customers, because currently it's kind of strangely worded that they can take their own refuge to the dump, or they can have services. So we're telling them, if you want to take your trash to the dump, you can, but you still have to have a can. And unfortunately, what's going on right now is we're getting pulled into things like, for instance, I got a message, we have a customer that owns a business down the street here, and he bought a house right behind his business. Well, he throws all his trash into his business dumpster because he's paying for a good-sized dumpster. Well, the Siskiyou Disposal feels like he should also have a can at his house. We don't have time to get involved in those type of wars between those, and that's not really what we envisioned this. So at some point, we're either going to have to do one or two things. We're either going to have to allow folks to take their trash to the dump if they want. And by the way, we're only talking about less than 4 or 5% of our total customer base, which generally is what happens in these situations. You know, you end up spending a lot of time dealing with the few that don't want to pay their bills. And I have a sheet here with, I've redacted the names and the addresses to kind of show how many we currently have right now. I say we, it's not us, we don't have it, but it's the delinquent accounts for Siskiyou Disposal. And I feel for them too, because they have customers that are refusing to pay them. And honestly, when I looked down the list, I was thinking, oh, they're refusing to pay us too.
Were they ones that didn't pay us also?
Yeah.
Same people?
A lot of the same people, same frequent flyers. So we either need to change ordinance to allow people to do that, kind of like Wairika does, kind of like Shastina does. Shastina, if you want to take your stuff to the dump or have service, you can. Wairika's the same way. So the other way, and David and I talked about it, and we'd go in a little bit more depth later because I don't want to turn this into an agenda item, is possibly where at the end of the year, we add it up and we get with the county and place a lien on the property, a special assessment, which would be a pain to do as well. But I believe the county would pony up the money for the balances that are owed and then put a lien on the property. However, if I own property here in town, and if my renter was not paying his sanitation bill, then I'm going to be getting a lien on my property. It's going to be kind of a tough pill to swallow. So we've got to, I want to bring it up at the next council meeting. I want to have a more in-depth discussion on this.
Well, to me, there's two things that I'm thinking of. Is one, can't we send the bill to the property owner, or is that not allowed?
Yeah, well, if they have a service with Siskiyou Disposal, the renter does, not the owner. And we found out later, because our policy before with the city was, if we turned off your water, you had to pay your, the owner was, well, we found out later that's illegal. We can't do that. We can't, if somebody's renting a property and they run up a $500 water bill and then they bolt and we don't know where they're at, we can't hold the owner responsible for that. That's on the renter. Because because we've had people that want to rent that house again, and we've told them, no, you have to, and then we found out, no, we have to allow them to reestablish services.
Is there outreach to Great Northern? Didn't we allow so much money on, I think it was some sort of COVID money that we allowed for past utility bills and?
Yeah, I don't know if that's still there.
Is it gone?
I think they still have that.
Yeah, I mean, we can ask, but that would be between Great Northern and these individuals. I mean, not us. What I'm trying to say is.
But I would say that's an option for them.
That is, for Siskiyou Disposal, it is
Yeah.
to recapture their money.
No, I'm saying I think the individual has to apply for it.
Oh, yeah, I mean, they could, but.
But Great Northern would write the check to
Yeah.
Siskiyou Disposal. They would-
Exactly. So I can get with Chelsea and David and explain that too, so,
Every month they would be doing that for him, you think?
yeah.
No.
I'm just thinking to
I
catch
think
them
they
up
can
out
only
of
get
their
it.
arrears, that's all.
They might have a little bit of COVID money left over, but that's a Band-Aid on it. And
So, I have a question.
only one more, because David said if I get more than 2 or 3, I have to put it
I'm
on the
not
agenda.
gonna ask you.
Okay.
Chief, do these places are they just throwing all of their garbage in the front yard? Or are they actually taking their garbage away from their home so that when I drive by, I think that they have garbage
Well,
service?
as of right now, we don't have any of them being as labeled as a public nuisance, so they're keeping it and disposing of it somewhere.
Yeah.
That
that's-
being said, there's a minimum when you go to the dump, so I'm thinking how much are they holding in their garage till they do make a dump trip? Another consideration they're gonna have to take, as the word from the county, is anticipated dump fees are going to be going up here in the next
Yeah,
few
because
months.
there's a new
Well-
owner coming in.
I mean, to me, I mean, it's the best bargain in town, not to have to take your trash to the dump,
Right.
but get in line, and I don't understand it, but some people do. Wairika, it doesn't become an issue until, same thing I'm sure out in Shastina, until it becomes a nuisance, and then we have to go forward with that. So anyway, it's something that's just surfaced, and at first, we didn't think it was gonna be a big issue, and it's ballooned into a very big issue, so. But I'll be bringing something forward next month. Really quickly, John touched on the Tesla lot, 16 superchargers. We're excited about that. We're getting a lot of people asking when it's going to be done. Quickly on the sign update, Bob, the digital sign. I have met with the college, the high school. I'll be meeting with the elementary school here pretty soon with the different districts. I've also met with Crystal Geyser on some possible, because they have a community fund for things like this. So we're looking at potentially, I know the college says they have money for this. I think the city could pony up some money as well as, Crystal Geyser and the school district a little bit. We're looking at 2 sites, one in front of City Hall and one off the boulevard by College. There's one property owner that's kind of we have to remind him every year, the one over by Mechanics Bank, that lot over there it turns into a nuisance issue for us. And I'm going to talk to them about, we've had people that have possibly donate a lot for some signage right there, for a digital sign right there, a 2-sided sign. I'd like to get one. I've talked to Mayor several times about this, one close to College Boulevard to where people can see stuff going to and fro. And and after talking to the school district and the college and even Crystal Geyser to a certain extent is pretty excited about the potential of that because, again, we have no newspaper. I mean, we have one, but I don't want to disparage them, but there's really no news in it other than if you want to know what's going on in counties south of us, then it's a perfect paper to read. So anyway, there's making some progress on that. The other thing is the Heart and Soul, the town hall meeting thing. I've talked to those folks. We'll be coming forward with a potential budget. I'm looking at applying for potential grant to pay for that because that's a 2-year project. It's going to incorporate quite a bit of other people coming into our community to facilitate these. And I think that's something that I'm really excited about because I think getting more people engaged, as we've talked about, if the more people that are engaged, it's going to be better for our future of this community. So, and one other just quick one, we did a TOT allocation for the storefront mural projects. I just talked to the director. We're looking at probably 6 storefronts that have agreed to allow artists to come in and paint murals inside, not on the outside, but inside. and of the stores to add a little color, a little pop down there, and, you know, better than butcher paper or junk, as some of them have piled in there now. So anyway, we're trying to do our best to clean it up and do a little bit of beautification. And if you come down the hall and you see 20 trash cans with petunias in it, I'm keeping them alive, the ones that we had on the street, and because we spent a lot of money on those flowers. And the chamber has loaned us their wand, so we're going to water them all winter. If you keep them between 50 and 70 degrees all winter, they'll still stay alive and flourish. And so that's what we're going to do.
We don't have a sprinkler system in this building? Yeah, we do. You can put them right here and just turn that thing on with
There
a
we go.
match.
Sue had asked if we had any grow lights, and I was going to ask Justin if they've confiscated any, and maybe we could put them in there. So, no, we don't know whether we had some at one point. So anyway, that's all I have to report. And also, please keep the Guzman family in your thoughts and prayers. And I hate to, I don't be a bummer, but every month I know I talk about this, but just please keep Anna and her family in your thoughts and prayers. That's all I have to say. Every day. Thank you.
Well,
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we adjourn.
Amen.
all in favor?
Aye.
All righty, we're out of here. The sound of the gavel.